Hey, Bradley, thanks for making the time, mate. You'll have to excuse me. I'm not that great. Could be the second time I've got COVID, so excuse me for coughing. So I asked you a question on Messenger, and we decided that it's probably best to do a video on that question. Here we are. So here's that question that I typed out in Messenger, and I said, "Hey, mate, hope you're well. I've got a question for you. I'm not a novice when it comes to GMBs, as you know, but here's a question that I have no idea about. I've got an Aussie brand that is asking me about setting up a new site to generate traffic specifically from the US. They're crushing it in Australia already, but they want to get that US traffic. My advice was to first set up a GMB or GPB in the preferred location, which happens to be Orange County, Los Angeles, first, and go from there. So my question is, and what I know nothing about is, how easy or difficult would it be to set up an address to use for a GMB in that location?"
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know, we started talking about this previously, but you know, having a Google Business asset is certainly going to make it easier to enter a new market than it would be to just approach it via organic ranking only, because a Google Business profile is an entity validation. It's an entity validator. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, because of, especially in the US now with Google Business profiles, whenever you try to create a new one and then verify it, it requires video verification, which is a pretty rigorous process to verify that there is a real valid business there, right? A real person, there's a real location, there's a real business. And so by doing that, Google now has already kind of taken one of the first questions off that whether it's a real business or whatever. It's kind of it's satisfied that we've proven it's a real business. Go ahead.
Actually on that point, I've had some money sitting, affiliate money sitting in Warrior Plus for a long time, and I decided to pull it out about 2 months ago, and I needed it for a little project or whatever. And then, you've got to verify it yourself. Okay, cool. And then, whoa, that verification process turned into, uploading utilities, license, or a passport. And then, hey, give me access to your webcam. Oh, okay. And so, I'm watching this, I'm giving up all my data, but what am I going to do? I've got to pull that money out, and I left it late, so I had to just go ahead and do it. And so give access to my webcam, they take a photo of my face, and it actually didn't work. So they gave me a QR code to do on my phone. So I had to get my phone out, QR code that, pull up a link, use the camera on my phone to verify my face, match it with the documents I sent before I could pull my money out. And I can't remember that it was a third-party site they used. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm assuming it's what they're doing for GMBs now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. And that's, so that helps to, once you've got past that verification process for Google Business, then you've already established that there's a real local entity there. Now, whether Google's algorithm has determined, has established the entity or recognized the entity yet, that's usually not the case, but at least to Google corporate, not necessarily to search, not to the algorithm, but to corporate, you've proven that there's a real local entity there. And that's the first step, right? So so the strategy of wanting to approach or enter the US market with in starting with the Google Business profile, I think is sound. I think that's a wise strategy, because you're generally going to be able to get traction a lot faster with Google Business profile and start to generate leads or whatever. A lot faster than if you were to just go strictly organic project. And that's, again, because of what I just mentioned about with the establishing an entity to Google itself, right? That's critically important. So there's mainly four primary components to ranking a Google Business asset, which is a validated entity is to start with, right? You have to have a validated entity. Number two is on page, 3 would be off page, and then 4th would be engagement signals, right? Because engagement signals are one of the things that Google is incorporating more and more into its ranking algorithm, because that is harder and less likely to be spammed. It's a lot more difficult to spam. So going back to what I was saying with the entity, like that's always the starting point, is you first verify and validate the entity, which now through the video verification process, that's a big part of it. But that's just the first step, right? That's just so that you can get published. Once you're published, you still have to work on building the authority to help the algorithm recognize it as an entity. And there's like I said, there's besides, so we've satisfied the first component, which is validating the entity. Then there's on page, which on page consists of structure, content, etc. So you have to do your topic research. And remember, guys, it's no longer about keywords as it is about topics and entities. You know what I mean? So, so there's always the on page, which is content, the structure of the site. If you're going to have a self-hosted website, there's site structure there, and how you stack your content and all that. So kind of all the traditional on page stuff that we do. Then there's the off page signals, which with local, it has to do with citations and consistency, name, address, and phone number, consistency everywhere it's published. Backlinks, what they call, we talk about citations. When we say citations, we typically as SEOs, we think about structured citations, so name, address, phone number, but just mentions, brand mentions, mentions of the website URL, whether it's even a hyperlink or not, it doesn't matter. All of those are considered citations, and that's all important. Backlinks, etc. But then there's that fourth component, right? So we understand the entity now. We know kind of on-page elements. That's foundational stuff that anybody in SEO understands. We know links are still important. Backlinks matter. There was in the United States the whole Black Lives Matter thing, BLM, and I wanted to get a shirt that said "Backlinks Matter," BLM, because links still, yes, hashtag BLM, backlinks matter.
Nice.
Backlinks still do matter. They're less of an overall ranking, piece of the ranking pie, because of engagement signals. Engagement signals has become more and more important, and continues to become more important. And links continue to become less important. Although, like I said, I don't see any time in the near future where links will ever become irrelevant. It's still how the web works. But then engagement signals, and that
just on that point, they've taken one big chunk away from the importance of links by adding a physical verification limit token, or because before, apart from GMBs, we used to get that validation from links. This site over here is getting these links, these great links from other authoritative sites. That was how Google got that's not the right word, not authority, or verification. That was the way that Google's always got the verification through quality links from other previously verified sites. Now they've removed that part of the equation by putting a physical load up your webcam verification method in there.
Yeah, because links that were almost like a vote of confidence, So if you could get links from, well-established high authority type sites, then that was a kind of a validation signal to Google at the time. And that was,
that was the secret to Google's success from the very get-go.
Oh yeah.
That method, that's what got them, blew them up, that verification through links. Sorry, I interrupted. Sorry.
And so, and that's, if you think about it, that's why, we as SEOs, we chase down links from the high authority sites, the sites with the high traditional metrics, which would be like Moz's page authority and domain authority, or Ahrefs, URL rating and domain rating, like those kind of signals or metrics, which in the past that was super important, getting links from those sources that had those high traditional metrics. And I keep doing air quotes because it's no longer the case. Like getting links just from what I say traditional metrics. Remember, those metrics are all third-party proprietary metrics. Ahrefs, UR, and DR is proprietary. Google doesn't give a damn about those metrics. Google doesn't care about Moz, PA, or DA either. What now that we're in the semantic web, it's more about topical relevance than anything, and that's because Google's NLP, natural language processor, truly does understand the meaning of human language, at least in the English. And so it understands topics and concepts.
I know that every time I took, sorry for interrupting. I know that every time I ask my phone, I say, hey Google, and ask a stupid question, it understands what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And the results are spectacular. Often.
Go through it.
There you go.
So it was listening.
Yeah.
So I mean, it comes back to, links are still very, very important, and but they're important in a different way, because as you just mentioned, it's no longer, they're not necessarily, they still can be a validation signal, but they're not weighted nearly as heavily as they used to be. And that's why topical relevance matters so much more now, because again, Google's algorithm, like the NLP, it very quickly, like, think about it. If you were Google and you were trying to fight link spam, how would you do it? You would program the algorithm to scan the link so its originating source and look at the page. Okay, is the page relevant to what it's linking to? And if it's okay, if so, then good, that passes that kind of test. And then it looks at the domain, and what is the topical relevance of the domain, the most prominent topical category of the domain? Is there a match there? Is there a relevance match? If so, then now that link is valuable. If there's not a relevance match at the domain level, that link has now been devalued. Has it been devalued entirely? I don't know, but it's not nearly as significant as it could have been had there been a topical relevance match at both the page level and the domain level. Does that make sense? And so that's why topically relevant links matter right now. There's no question. And it's become, I'm seeing more and more through my own testing that topical relevance is significantly important for ranking both organically and also in maps. But in maps, there's also another factor besides topical relevance. So let me back up for a minute, because topical relevance matters for ranking an organic search, period, whether it's a local project, regional, national, global, an e-com, affiliate project, not anything, period. If you want to rank an organic search, topically relevant links are what really matters right now. Topically relevant links have an impact and influence on maps ranking for local projects. But what has a bigger impact on maps ranking is geographically relevant links or locally relevant links. So links from other established local entities in the same geographic region. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So,
and when we're talking about maps, we're talking about GMBs, GBPs.
Yeah, when I say maps, I mean Google Business, right? So ranking Google Business profiles. In order to rank a Google Business profile, like I said, topically relevant links have an influence on maps ranking, but what has a bigger impact on maps ranking and a slight influence on organic ranking is locally relevant links. Okay, so getting links from other businesses that Google has identified and recognizes as local or businesses that are in close proximity to
local to that GMB location.
Correct. And so topical relevance in that respect doesn't really matter as much as it does, getting links from other locally relevant sources. So that kind of satisfies the maps ranking algorithm from a link standpoint, but there's still the one missing component that we haven't really discussed yet, which is the engagement signals. And again, going back to why, Google's been trying to fight SEOs. Like, what do we do as SEOs, right? We manipulate search. That's what we do. That's what we like. That's our job. And Google's been trying to fight us since like SEO was invented, right? Since the search engines were invented, we've been playing this cat and mouse game to manipulate. Well, one of the things, so links.
I don't think there's more people on the planet that are aware of that than myself. I can guarantee you, fighting with Google. Jesus Christ, we're just going through that now with Google accounts. They've the algorithm, or the spam algorithm for Google accounts. We've been at war with that for years and always been one step ahead. But now we've lost the one step ahead advantage. So
it's getting tougher.
Yep.
It is definitely getting tougher. And so that kind of brings me back to what I was saying with that is the new ranking factor that Google has kind of reintroduced back into the ranking algorithm, which it's funny, but way back years ago, user engagement signals was a significant ranking factor. And then it kind of over time dwindled as not being so important. but now it's come back. And part of the reason why is because as we're just talking about, like, you know, Google's been fighting SEOs, right? Been battling us because it doesn't want us manipulating its algorithm and its search results. And so it always, you know, we find loopholes and things that we can exploit, and we do it. And then eventually Google catches up and they patch it, right? They patch that hack, and it prevents us from doing it. So we talked about links and how Google, well, first of all, video. So let's go back to, like, what is Google doing to fight manipulators, right? With Google Business, it has now switched in the United States mainly, almost exclusively, to video verification. So that now eliminates most spammers right off the bat, because they can't even get a Google Business published anymore, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's that. Then all the on-page and everything else that we do, like, that's, again, foundational stuff that really hasn't changed. The fundamentals of on-page really have not changed since I've been in this industry. Then off-page signals, though, that's what I was saying now. So what has Google done? Google has baked into the algorithm now, because of NLP and the algorithm, you know, layers like BERT, for example, that truly do understand language and understand the meaning and the intent behind language and search queries and stuff like that. So topically relevant links, Google has programmed into the thing, to the algorithm to look at links and crawl to its source, scan the page. Is it topically relevant? Okay, fine. Check the domain relevance. And so again, these are things that Google is doing in order to reduce the ability for us to, as SEOs, to manipulate the search, because it was always easy for us to just get links, right? So that's a way we've been able to manipulate search. Well, so video verification, that was a way to prevent us from manipulating search. On page, not really much has changed there. Off page, topically relevant links now are what matters, or locally relevant links, geographically relevant links for ranking and maps. The last part of this is now engagement signals, which is about, you know, Google monitors activity of how searchers, Google users, interact with the search results, and maps very, very importantly, maps as well. So we all understand things like click-through rate. We also understand like bounce rate, so click-through rate is, you know, how many times is a search query given your website or Google Maps listing or an ad, an impression. Like, how many times has it appeared for people searching for that? And then how many times when it gets clicked through? So what is the percentage, right, of how many searches versus how many times it's been clicked through? That gives you your click-through rate. That's something that we could manipulate, right? That's something that we can manipulate.
Absolutely.
Something else besides the click-through rate is bounce rate. So bounce rate would be like, you know, somebody lands on your website, they go to Google, they do a search, they click on a result, and they see that the result doesn't satisfy their query. So they back out and go back to the search results to click onto the next listing to see if that satisfies the search query. So that's bounce rate, right? That's something else that, you know, Google looks at. Google looks at what is the journey of that user once they click onto either a maps listing or the knowledge panel or into a website. What does the user do? Does the user dwell? Does the user scroll? Does the user click on other pages or other elements? So if we're talking about the website, they might click to other pages, click to the contact page. That's a great signal. Fill out a form, a conversion. So like a estimate request form or an opt-in form with a conversion signal. That's a really good signal to Google. It's an engagement signal. On Google Maps, though, specifically on Google Maps, think about, you know, Google has provided us with all these tools in the Google Business Profile, you know, dashboard, essentially, like the Google Business site, Google Posts, messages where you can like receive text messages, questions and answers. There's all these different elements in the Google Maps profile or the Google Business Profile that displays on Maps and also in the knowledge panel, so that when a Google user searches and they start to engage with the brand via Google Maps or the knowledge panel, Google tracks all of those engagement signals as well, right? Do they click on photos? Do they check out reviews? Do they look at Q&A? Do you know what I mean? Like all these different things that Google tracks, and those are all
and this is all time specific. So
yeah,
comparing if you've got 3 GMBs in the box at the top, how much time Google knows how much time a user will spend on each and reward the one the most time is spent on, I suppose, as a simple way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And see, again, that goes back to, you know, that is becoming more and more an important part of ranking. Again, user engagement signals it's important for both organic ranking and maps ranking, but think about more specifically with maps ranking with the Google Business Profile. There are all those different elements that Google provides to keep the user in the Google environment, right?
Yes. Yes.
So think about what the traditional organic web results have always been, right? The search results for organic is just a listing of external website URLs mostly, right? So in other words, you go to Google, you do a search, a user goes to Google, does a search, and then they're provided with a list of external URLs that they click and it takes them off of Google.
Yep.
Right. If you've ever done any sort of Facebook marketing, you know that anytime you have an external link in Facebook, Facebook significantly reduces the reach of that post or the exposure. So very few people see it because Facebook doesn't want people clicking that link to go off of Facebook. They want users to stay on Facebook and engage with more ads, et cetera. So Google wised up and started.
I keep forgetting that. I do a lot of Facebook marketing and I keep forgetting. I always put that link in there. And
it completely destroys your reach.
It
throttles it way down. Well, Google finally, I guess, took Facebook's lead on that, and with Google Business or Google My Business, formerly now Google Business Profile, and started providing us or local businesses with all those tools that are designed to keep the Google user in the Google ecosystem. So again, Google Business website, posts, questions and answers, services, photos, reviews, all of these things. Message, you know, you can actually do text messages back and forth through the Google Business and Google Maps app. So all of that is so that when somebody goes to Google and searches and they see a knowledge panel or they're in Google Maps and they search, they can engage with that brand without having to click off to the website.
Yep.
Does that make sense? So all of these things that, you know, again, that is the new kind of SEO. It really is. I mean, you still have to do all the other stuff, all the traditional stuff, the foundational stuff. Again, content, site structure, links, all of that is important. But where I see the new kind of SEO is more about how can we manipulate engagement signals, right? In a believable way, not, you know, and that's kind of where I'm seeing the biggest opportunity for us right now, because it's difficult. It's difficult to manipulate user engagement signals, but if you figured out ways to do that, that can be a that adds fuel to the fire. In other words, it's not a magic bullet. I've not seen the ability of being able to rank a Google Business asset on engagement signals alone. It probably could be done, but if you have your other components in place, you know, again, validated entity, your on page is correct, and you've got some decent links, topically relevant, locally relevant links for apps, then the last kind of component, like I said, is the engagement signals. And that's naturally going to occur when you rank. But what about until you rank? Right? Can we massage that a little bit and help it out? That's really kind of the next, I think, the next step in SEO. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yep.
So you know, and that's where I think the next step for SEO is, you know, in addition to everything else, right? Like our jobs as SEOs continue to expand. Our job description gets longer and longer every year because we have to learn more and do more. And that's just the nature of the business that we're in. So, you know, but it's really important. And so that's something that we saw was coming. We've seen more and more proof at Semantic Mastery, like, you know, from my own business, because I run an agency, you know, and I do lead gen and everything else, but also from all the members of our group that we've, you know, there's been CTR tools out there, CTR manipulation. I'm sure most of your audience is familiar with that, but just to kind of, for those that aren't, click-through rate, CTR, right? So we talked about that before. That is an engagement signal that is very basic. Again, that was years ago. That was very important, and it kind of dwindled, and then it's come back now, and it's become a very important component of the ranking algorithm, which is but that can be spoofed, right? So what I mean by that is CTR manipulation apps. Those would be like apps that go out, they're bots essentially that will use proxies and things like that, that will go out and do keyword search and then find the listing that you tell it to click on and then click through and then perhaps dwell, scroll, click to another page or whatever. All these on-page signals or factors, engagement signals that I was talking about previously. So CTR manipulation bots, they've been around for years. In fact, way back when I learned about the importance of click-through rate and how you could manipulate that was back in like 2011 or maybe 12. But back then we didn't have bots that would do it. So we would hire microtask workers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we like Mechanical Turk or shorttask.com. Like we would go hire microtask workers and tell them like, go to Google and search for this particular search query, go find this link, click on it, and then, you know, scroll down, look in the third paragraph and copy the fourth word out of the third paragraph. So that would cause them to go to Google, search for the keyword, find the link, click through, then scroll down on the page, find that word. So there would be dwell time, scrolling, all of that. So all these signals, and that worked really well, but it was manual. It was manual in the fact that we would have to set up these kind of short, these microtask gigs and then all that kind of stuff. So it was a bit of a pain to scale. But you know, but then probably I think in 2015 or something like that, they started coming out with these click-through rate manipulation apps, which are apps that will go out and they're bots, and they would use proxies and things that would go out and you could program it to do these kind of search and clicks and that kind of stuff. And that worked like gangbusters for a couple of years, but then Google caught on and Google kind of killed it because they were using commercial proxies, right? So data center proxies and things like that. And so Google was very quickly able to just kill that traffic. Engagement signals that come through those kind of IP ranges was just completely ignored, and it killed that. It stopped working. So then what? Then we started, you know, developers started figuring out how to use residential proxies and now mobile proxies and things like that, which is, so it started to work again. But that's still a very small component of overall engagement signals. And again, think about we're always playing this cat and mouse game, right? Google's always trying to figuring out, like we try to figure out ways to manipulate. Google then catches on, and then it starts, it remedies that, right? It tries to prevent us from manipulating those types of signals. So click-through rate manipulation is only a component of engagement signals. So if all you do is focus in on search and click signals, that's going to look very unnatural, right? Because what happens with those bots, by the way, when they click through, like you tell them to, you know, it's robotic. There's patterns that can be picked up on and all that kind of stuff. Not saying don't do click-through rate manipulation. It is a tool. You should be use that as a kind of a larger arsenal. But click-through rate manipulation again is only a small component or piece of the overall number of engagement signals that can be manipulated. The problem is, and where the challenge is how do you manipulate those other signals? So specifically back to maps, like what I was talking about with local businesses, it's quite important that, you know, people engage with the maps profile and then the Google business profile, either in Google Maps or in the knowledge panel, which is Google, you know, google.com main Google search, because that's what real humans do, right? Real humans are, every time somebody does a search, they're gonna engage with different factors of the profile. Some are gonna look at reviews, some are gonna look at photos, some are gonna check the frequently asked or the cute questions and answers, you know. Some are going to look at the menu if it's a restaurant, you know, like all these different things that are available, services and Google business profile. So that's where there's opportunity that I see right now in the local space, is kind of like CTR manipulation, but on a larger scale with more components specifically to local. So that's something that we started to test with. There was a course by Brock Meisner called Google Business with, you know, ranking Google business profiles with data manipulation or something like that. And this came out, you know, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago. And it was a really good course because it was like showing how to manually go in with mobile Google profiles that you attach to mobile devices, and you go in and you can send manual manipulation signals through the Google Maps profiles. And I saw
with a physical mobile phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Very manual process, but
yep.
You add multiple profiles to your phone, and you use GPS simulators and things like that to change geolocation, and very manual process. But I started testing when Brock came out with the course. I picked it up and I started testing with it, and I saw movement in a matter, like maps movement, positive maps movement in a matter of days, 3-4 days. You can literally see the map geogrid, search grid start to change and turn from red to yellow, right? Or yellows to greens.
Yeah.
And I saw that because I started testing some of Brock's, methods, started testing some of the methods on my own phone. Literally, I bought another phone, and should be sitting on my desk here somewhere. But anyway, I bought another phone and some SIM cards, and I started, and I was using your AI profiles, as a matter of fact, that I got from your AI profiles provider as my profiles, because those have, are fairly well validated. So, and I started manipulating some of those engagement signals, like just going and doing on the Google Maps app, going to Google Maps and searching for a brand, and then engaging with that, clicking like on a review, things like that. And sure enough, within a matter of just a couple of days, you start to see the Maps geogrid start to change for the better, right?
Yeah.
So it was really, really powerful. And I started thinking, like, man, this is great, but it's not really scalable because it's so manual. So what can we do? Is there a way that this can be manipulated in a more automated way? And so, we ended up hooking up with a developer that thought that he could do it. And we said, well, let's give it a shot. And many months later, we've really developed a semi-automated. It's never going to be fully automated, at least not, I say never, but I don't know that we're ever going to be able to fully automate it. But we've figured out a way to automate a lot of the kind of engagement signals that we can manipulate in Maps, a lot of the things that I just mentioned, right? And so we developed a done-for-you service, unlike click-through rate manipulation apps, which people sell access to, right? Where you can go in and just punch in your keywords and tell it, like, I want you to find these URLs, and then click through, and you can sometimes set dwell time and all that kind of stuff.
If I just interrupt, so if I get my brand to set up a GMB in Orange County, LA, you would know how to get signals from that local area, to that new GMB. Bring it back to the original question, right?
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, we figured out a way to automate a lot of the signals that we strictly do it in Maps. Like, so click-through rate manipulation, as I mentioned before, that is a component of it, which is search and click, right? So that is doing a search and then clicking. So that is a component of what we also do, what we figured out, and what we created. And I started to say CTR apps out there that there's a lot of there are a dime a dozen now, where you can go out and buy access to an app and plug in your keywords and tell it where you want it to click and all that kind of stuff. Again, that's just one component of what the engagement signals that Google is looking at, especially in local, because of the Google business profiles having all of those different things that can be clicked on and viewed and engaged with. So if you only focus on search and click signals, again, that looks unnatural because it's not producing all of the signals that a human would produce. And so what we did was we figured out a way to use mobile emulators, Google profiles, and geolocation. And so that we, go out and create these Google profiles with Android phones in the cities where we have Google business assets that need manipulation. And then we go out and we do search and click signals as part of it, but we do brand search is a big part of that. We do generic keyword search, but then we do the engagement signals. In other words, once we pull up the target asset, then we have the profiles on mobile, Android phones. We'll go in and check reviews. They'll ask questions. They'll go in and ask the question. It'll post a question like, do you guys give free estimates, or are you fully licensed and insured? Things like that. It will
Yep.
So
relevant questions. Yeah.
Yeah, and so essentially what we did was we created a semi-automated done for you service, as opposed to just like, people coming in and being able to buy access to it. And part of the reason why we wanted to do a done for you service for maps engagement signals, which is precisely what it is. It's called Local Fury, but we're going to be doing a kind of a webinar on this, Peter, where we're going to explain a lot more about what it is and show some examples of what it is that we do. So that might be something you'd be interested in.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think I'd better invite you to do another video or webinar where we can go into this into a bit more detail.
Yeah, and I think that would work because, as I was starting to say, we didn't want to just sell access to an app, because one thing that I've seen, because I'm in a lot of these CTR groups and stuff, is the same questions come up over and over and over again for people. They come in and they say, well, how much search volume, search and click signals should I send, and this and that. And it's the same questions come up over and over again. And I see people doing click-through rate manipulation incorrectly, improperly, because they focus too much on keywords and not enough on brand signals. Brand signals are the most important thing. Come full circle back to where we started about validating an entity, right? Do you understand that, like, brand signals are the most important thing for validating and establishing an entity and adding weight or authority to the entity? So that's part of the reason that, like, what we developed, we didn't want to just sell access to, because when people are sending the wrong kinds of signals and they don't get results, who are they going to blame? They're going to blame us, the app provider, right? Oh, your shit doesn't work. Well, no, wait a minute, you were doing it incorrectly. So we just said, we want to eliminate. Also your infrastructure that you're using will get tainted by That's
people.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. So that's part of the reason we decided to do a done for you service, was so that we could do it properly in the way that we know works, which is, again, and I don't want anybody to, I don't want you, Peter, I don't want to mislead you and think, to say that engagement signals are the be all end all. It is not a magic bullet. It is not going to be the solution to all your problems. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But it is a component when combined with all the other kind of sound SEO principles. Engagement signals can significantly move the needle until you start to receive natural organic signals from real use, because you're ranked, and then you can start to pull back on them signals and direct them elsewhere, if that makes sense. So
absolutely. Bradley, thank you very much for your time, mate. I know it's early over there, so I appreciate you making the time for us. And so I'll see you in a webinar in a week or two, hey?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll send you some information about that. But yeah, we're going to be doing a webinar specifically about this, where we'll kind of show some examples of what it is that we've developed and how we apply it, and then specifically our method too, because as I said, it's a done for you service. So they're with consultation. There's actually, you get a one-on, like anybody that were to join would get a one-on-one consultation with me, so that we develop a plan and we set expectations. Everybody knows, like, right off the bat what it is that like how we go about manipulating these signals in a natural and organic way, so that it makes it believable to Google, so that it is effective. As you just mentioned, you can go too aggressive and send the wrong kinds of signals and end up causing harm to the entity. And that's what we see often. So what we do is a very strategic way that we've proven works. And it's, as you mentioned, it's more of a longer term play. It's not, sometimes you'll see immediate results, but those aren't typical. What I always recommend is it's a compounding effect that builds. And so that's kind of what we've developed. And I'm excited to show you what we've developed when we do this webinar. So,
mate, I really like how you help people set expectations. Look, I've been running a support desk, an SEO support desk, for 13, 14 years, probably longer. And so we get to see the projects that people are doing and talk about going hard and fast at the beginning. Oh, there's too many horror stories. And that's why we've had to, in our software, put in so many limits for people's own protection, so they don't go too hard too fast. But anyway, thanks a lot for your time again, mate. And I'll see you in a week or so.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it, buddy.